What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we're gonna check out the IK Multimedia ToneX plugin. We're gonna capture a tube amp with it, and then we're gonna compare it back to back. Does this software have the capability to change the game? We're gonna find out. Let's do it! Alright guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and what I do is I take awesome high gain related guitar gear, record it with a simple SM57 setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. So if you're into that sort of thing and you like dudes who just realized that they haven't brushed their teeth yet today, you're in the right place. Consider hitting the like button and subscribing and helping me get to 20,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks! Alright guys, so by now, if you are into the amp capturing thing whatsoever, you have probably heard of the new ToneX plugin from IK Multimedia. I had a lot of you guys actually directly hit me up and ask if I was going to be checking the software out, because you all know that I have a Kemper profiler, I have a Neural Quad Cortex, and I sell packs for those devices. So you know that I am pretty intimately familiar with the capabilities of the capturing process of either of those devices. That was a very poorly constructed sentence. But it was clear to me that you guys were really curious about my opinions on how well the ToneX capture function was going to work and how well I think that it's going to stack up against something like the Kemper profiler or the Neural Quad Cortex. Now, I will start off by saying, guys, I was already interested in this plugin for myself. I'm glad that you guys showed interest in it because I wanted to check it out, because honestly, I think that it's gonna end up being a really useful studio tool if, and it's a big if, the capture function works as well as something as, say, a Kemper profiler or a Neural Quad Cortex. Because not only does ToneX not require a $2,000 piece of equipment in order to use it for the capture function, but everything that you capture is now going to be in your computer. You do not have to connect an external device in order to reamp your DI tracks. You can do it as if it were a regular plugin right inside your DAW. And I think that that's just gonna be really useful for dialing in your tones for your recordings and not being stuck with a baked in tone reamping those devices or reamping a real amp. But again, it all comes down to if this software can capture the amp accurately. And today, we're gonna put that to the test. I'm gonna walk you guys through my setup, and then I'm going to walk you through the capture process. We're gonna do a default capture, and then we are going to shoot it out back to back with the real amp and see how accurate it is. Now, before I get too long-winded, as I do in most of my videos, I wanted to let you guys know that IK Multimedia did reach out to me in order to check out this software with you guys. This is a sponsored video, and they also sent me the ToneX capture device in order to do the captures as advertised. But even though this is a sponsored video, you guys are gonna get my honest thoughts and opinions as always, so please keep that in mind. All right guys, so let's first move into my setup. How do I have this routed with the ToneX capture box? Hey, it's me. I'm gonna use a cell phone for this in order to walk you guys through. Here is my setup here. Ignore this stuff over here because that is what I'm using in order to capture the audio for this video. But we have my computer here and we have the interface. Now, normally I am using a Focusrite Claret 8 Pre Plus. I'm not using that for this video, and I'm gonna explain to you why in just a moment. But we are using the PreSonus 1810C in order to do our captures here. So on input 2 here is my Happy Cable Company cable. This is what I'm using for my guitar input into the interface. And then from the line out on the back, we are going into the ToneX capture device here, which is nice and dusty. From the ToneX capture device, we have our line out that is going into the front end of my PV-XXX, which is the amp that we are going to be capturing today because it's an absolute ripper. And then from the speaker output on the back, that is going into the amp side of the ToneX capture device. And from the back of that, we have a speaker cable going into my 2Notes torpedo captor. This is so that I can capture the amp silently and also be able to monitor it on my system here, because if I was doing a real amp in the room, I would not be able to hear what was actually coming out of my monitors. So that's the purpose for that. And then finally, we have the line out from the ToneX capture that is going back into input number 3 on our interface. And there will be a screen on the capture software that walks you through how to hook up everything here because, yeah, it can be a little bit confusing, but luckily IK has put the whole, the signal flow and how you need to have this hooked up in order to function properly. So that is my setup. So now that you guys know my setup and what I'm using to do this, I wanted to touch on the Focusrite Claret. Now, the reason that I am not using this, and I actually had to go through some trial and error in order to get the capture function to work correctly for me, but it is not IK Multimedia's fault. It is actually the fault of the Focusrite interface. Now, if you guys are familiar with Focusrite interfaces, I have an 18i20 Gen 3 and I have this Claret 8 Pre Plus. One of their main drawbacks is their line output signals are not one-to-one, meaning it does not have enough gain to recreate your line output signal or your DI in this case from our guitar at the same level or the same volume as it is put in. So what does that mean? It means that when I plug straight into the amp of the PV-XXX, my signal is going to be hotter or louder going into the amp than it is going to be coming out of the line output of my interface. Therefore, that's going to result in a weaker signal that's going to result in less gain on the amplifier. And it's not going to be an accurate capture. Now, with the ToneX capture device, it actually does give you an attenuator for that line out signal, but it's just that, it's an attenuator. It cannot boost your signal any further. It can only attenuate it from 0 decibels down to negative 24 decibels, I think. Yes, that's correct. So what I had to do is I had to break out one of my other interfaces, the PreSonus Studio 1810C, which has a much hotter line output. And I actually do have to attenuate the signal coming out of the PreSonus because it is that much hotter. It will create clipping if you don't attenuate it. But yeah, I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. Again, this is not IK Multimedia's fault. This is the fault of the Focusrite interface. I'm not sure what interface you guys are going to be using because there's tons of them out there on the market, but if you're having trouble with the gain levels of your captures not matching up with the amp itself, you're going to need to find a workaround. You're going to need to put a volume or EQ pedal in between that line out and the capture. So finally, moving on to the software portion, I have ToneX pulled up here as the standalone version. You have to have the standalone version up in order to do the capture function. So we are going to go over to the modeler side here, and it's going to walk you through. So first off, it asks you the type of capture that you want to do. We want to do a guitar. Here it gives you the tone model type, and as you can see, we have amp and cab, complex rig, stomp and amp. So for today, we are going to do the amp only capture. So hit next, and here again is that diagram. This walks you through exactly how your signal chain should be routed in order to get an accurate capture and for everything to work out. So take a quick look. As you can see, everything is worked out on my end, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, but this is my signal flow for this capture. So once that is all good, we hit next and we move on, and we are going to check our input level. This is going to be the level of the guitar, making sure that the gain is set properly on the interface. So as you can see, unless I'm hitting the strings really, really hard, we are in that proper gain level. We're gonna move on to the next portion, and this is where we flip our amp out of standby, and this is going to check our send level. Now, before we do that, I actually have something open in Reaper here because I wanted to be able to dial in the amplifier. Even though we are doing a silent capture, I have an impulse response loader open in Reaper, and I have a York Audio DV77 impulse response pulled up, and that is just so I can dial in the amplifier and make sure that the capture is going to sound the way that I want it to. So that is the sound of the amp. That is how it is going to be captured on the way in. If I were to turn this off, that's the actual sound of the amp, and that's why I have this open so we can properly dial the amp in before we capture it. So now that that is done, I'm gonna mute that track, and we are gonna go back into ToneX. We're gonna hit the next button, and this is where we are going to adjust our input level. As you can see, it is a little bit too loud, so we're gonna pull it back on the attenuator for the amp portion of the capture. Now, if we want to set this without actually playing ourselves, we can test it by using one of the DI tracks that they have here for us. So not only can we use that to make sure that our input level is correct on the software, but we can also use it. There is a clipping light on the ToneX capture, which I think is really useful. When we hit play, this is actually gonna go into the red because it's clipping a little bit. And now we have both our input signal and our output signal properly set. Our levels are good to go, and we can go ahead, we can move on to the capture function, and we can hit capture, and I'm gonna set my listening level down to 0 because this is gonna be really loud if I don't. All right, we're back, it's done. So we have our capture here. We are going to hit the next button, and here's where it asks you the accuracy level. So I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but the accuracy level is going to dictate basically how quickly the capture signal is processed and turned into the capture itself. The higher the accuracy level, the longer it's gonna take, but the more like the real amp it is going to be. Now, the fast capture takes about 15 to 20 minutes. The default capture takes half hour, 40 minutes, and the advanced capture takes like 5 to 7 hours. It's all gonna depend on your hardware, what system that you're using. For the purposes of this video, we are going to do the default capture, and we're gonna see how accurately that compares with the real amp. And if you guys want me to come back and revisit with the advanced capture, we will do that. But as of the time of this filming, and the way that I have everything set up here, we're gonna check the default. So I think most people are probably gonna be using the default anyways, if we're being honest, with that advanced capture function taking such a long time. So I'm gonna hit the next button, and then right here, start default training, and it's gonna start doing its thing. And for the next 30 to 40 minutes, you can feed your dog, you can do the dishes, you can bing your bong, whatever you wanna do. You can leave this be completely because it doesn't need you for anything that's about to happen. So I'll see you guys again in about 40 minutes. All right, guys, the capture is finished processing. Let's dig in. So we are gonna go to next, and it is just basically going through the connection again to make sure that everything is properly set up. All right, moment of truth. And again, keep in mind, we're not gonna have an impulse response. It's gonna be very harsh, but we really just wanna see if it sounds similar to the real amp. All right, here's the real amp. And back to the tone model. They sound very similar. Over here you can fine tune the gain with the trim gain. Let's actually turn it up a little bit because it seems like there's a little bit more on the real amp. All right, it sounds really close. So we are going to pick our actual amp model. So you get to choose from a bunch of different basically amp interfaces here. Thinking that we should go with this one because it looks like a PV. All right, so hit next. And here is where we enter our model info, triple XXX. We're gonna skip that. We're gonna go to the description. Description is, that's 9 X's. Amp name, PV, triple XXX. Select character, high gain. Amp channel will be crunch. Okay, so instead of going to the player, guys, we're gonna X out of this, and we are going to open up in this top track here, our actual ToneX plugin. And as you can see, between track 2, which is our DI, and track 4, we actually have 2 identical instances of STL Tones Nadir, which is an IR loader. Both of them have the exact same DV77 York audio impulse response loaded up. And again, for track 1, we're gonna go in, we are going to add our ToneX. We're gonna go all the way to the bottom because that is where we will find our fresh capture. We're gonna unmute the ToneX capture. And now we are gonna compare it to the real amp. And back to the capture. and back to the real amp. All right, super close. Man, the differences are a little tough to discern right now. It seems like maybe the amp has just a little bit more gain and a little bit more top end, but we can go into this capture and we can adjust that because it gives us EQ controls in order to dial it in the way that we want. It's not just a static capture. So again, here's the real amp. And here is the capture. It is close, okay? So the feel, we'll get into the feel in a moment, but the feel is very similar as well. Let's add a little bit more gain from the amp, or in the ToneX capture. And let's add just a little bit more treble. All right, and back over to the amp. All right, it's super close. Now I think the capture actually has a little bit more treble. All right, so there's that, and back over to the amp. Man, it is really close. Yeah, overall, man, it's kind of crazy. It almost seems as if the capture has a little less gain, and maybe it has maybe a little bit more treble. Let's add a little bit more gain in the capture. Given maybe just a hint more sag. All right, back over to the real amp. Dude, this is crazy. I mean, there are differences. I can hear them, but they are subtle differences. And in a mix, I very highly doubt that you would be able to tell. And keep in mind, guys, this is the default training. So if we were to do the advanced training and really let the processor or the software do its thing, it's probably gonna be even closer than we have it now, and it's already crazy close. So again, I think the amp now, the way that it is, let's pull back the treble even just a tad more, like 4.7, and let's add just a hint of bass and see if we can kind of get that low end fullness a little bit, because it is, the capture seems maybe just a tad thinner on the low end. But again, guys, this is me literally listening with a very critical ear, trying to pick out every difference. All right, now back to the real amp. It's so close, guys. It's so close. I'm gonna play a riff, and I'm gonna switch back and forth real quick and just let you guys listen without me talking so you can really try to discern the differences for yourself on your end. So, we're starting with the plugin. All right, guys, I'm impressed. I really am impressed. There are subtle differences, mostly in the high end, and I did have to add a little bit of gain to the capture to kind of match the gain of the amp dead on. But the differences were so subtle that you would not notice them in a mix. There is no way that you would be able to pick the two out between each other in a mix, in my personal opinion. I don't think that you're gonna be able to pick it out. It's awesome because now my ToneX is in my computer forever and I can dial in the controls the way I want. It's not just a static shot. We can pair it with whatever impulse response that we want because it is a DI of just the amp. We can throw a boost in front of it, whatever we want to do. It's there. My amp is now forever in my computer, and because there is a ToneNet function, which is where you basically log in order to share all of your captures with the community, which is something I didn't even mention in the beginning of this video. You can share this, the ToneX software, and yes, in order to use the capture function of the ToneX software, you do have to get the paid version, and it starts at $149. But with the free version, you can actually download up to 20 of these captures from the IK Multimedia ToneNet section of the plugin. So if you guys download the free version of the software, you can go ahead and get my KB XXX capture that I just captured. That's free. That's yours now. You guys can have it. But yeah, I'm impressed to say the least, guys. I would like to try this again at some point to do the advanced capture and really see how much closer we can get it to the real amp. But even with this default capture, it's close enough that in a mix, you're not gonna be able to notice those differences. The feel was great. It was maybe just a tad tighter than the real amp, but upping the gain in the capture seemed to actually add to the feel, which I thought was really, really cool. And yeah, just now being able to put my entire amp collection in my PC and take it with me wherever I go to use on whatever mix that it is that I please, just throw it in a plugin, man. That's cool. That really is cool. I'm impressed, but I wanna know what you guys thought. What did you hear on your end that I didn't hear on my end? Because things sounded really good to me, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Let me know your opinion. How close did these things stack up down in the description? I'm really curious to see how you guys feel about this. Do you feel as strongly about it as I do, or did you hear more differences that maybe my ears weren't picking up on here in the room? And again, if you want this software for yourself in order to capture your own amp collection, the software starts at $149. I will link it down below in the description of this video. You can capture your amplifiers without the ToneX capture device. I have seen others do it. I'm not exactly sure how to do it, so I can't help you with that. But if you want to make sure that it's as accurate as it can be, if it's routed the way that IK Multimedia meant it to be, pick up the ToneX capture. They come in at $249, and honestly, you can use it as a reamp box as well. It's not just for this app. You now have a reamp box to capture the DI of your amplifier if you want, or in order to reamp for recordings, you can reamp real amplifiers with this thing. And it's already gone on sale a couple of times for $199, so keep an eye out for that. I'll link to that down below in the description as well. Thanks again to IK Multimedia for sending me the software and a capture to check this out. I had a lot of fun. I'm gonna get some use out of this software. Hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button on the way out. Subscribe, help me get to that 20K mark by the end of the year. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. We'll see you next time.
You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.